the God. You know what I'm saying? All right, this is a serious conversation. All right, um, I I used to be a part of the 5% Nation of God's Nerves, but I had a spiritual journey maybe about 6 years ago where I decided that I no longer feel comfortable isolating myself into one particular group. I want to be a universal spirit, but I still have a lot of connections with the 5%ers, in my town and other towns. And one of the main topics that we discuss is young kids getting immersed into the street culture. And we always try to figure out why, and we always try to figure out how to stop it. We analyze it like scientists. And whenever someone point blank asks me, why do young black kids, get involved in the streets? Why does any kid get involved in the streets? And my answer is I don't know, because I've never really been in the streets. I've never liked the streets. Ever since I could remember, I've always hated street culture. I've always liked rap, but I never liked the rap that endorsed genocidal concepts. I never liked rap that was disrespectful, misogynistic, and I never liked rap that espoused poverty morals. And the older I got, the further away I got away from rap. So, I never really was a person who found the streets to be fascinating, because when I was in my teenage years, I lost a cousin. He was shot in the head, and I lost a few friends that I grew up with. They decided to experiment with the street culture. They weren't gangsters. They never hurt anybody. They never did anything severe to anybody. They were just simply hanging out in their neighborhoods, which happened to be inner city neighborhoods, and they just got themselves caught up in situations. And I remember when I was 16 years old, my cousin, I remember the night like it was yesterday, my mom woke me up in the middle of the night and said my cousin was in the hospital. He had got shot in the head. And we went to the hospital. When we went to the hospital, I remember looking at my cousin while he was in the ICU. He had all these tubes hooked up to him, and his head was contorted. And the doctor explained to us that his entire skull had been cracked by the bullet. And he died that night, and at 16 years old, that was such a profound experience for me that I always carried that with me, and I never really found the streets to be fascinating. So, I don't know why kids find the streets fascinating. To me, the normal human brain knows what danger is. If you see something hot, you're not going to touch it because you're going to get burned. But when it comes to the street culture, it doesn't work that way, because one thing I notice about human beings is the fact that we can adapt to any environment. You can be an inmate. You can be somebody who was rich in the free world, who lived like they wanted to live, who was able to do what they wanted to do, but you can go to prison for the rest of your life. But that isn't the end of you as a unique individual. You still carry the aura that you've always had while being an inmate, serving life. Because you still have self-respect, you still have your sense of morality, and you still have your sense of who you are. And I think that in the streets are able to get those things out of the streets. They're able to get self-respect. They're able to have a sense of morality, and they're able to find a sense of meaning, a sense of who they are, shaped by the streets. So the streets gives you that. The harshest environments in the world give you that. When you're in war, when you're a soldier who's at war, you're not going to be afraid and leave your troops behind, because just that ambiance, just that atmosphere, that environment of war naturally provides you with self-respect, a sense of morality, a sense of who you are, a sense of principle. So it puts you in a situation where you actually become ready to die for your fellow troops. Not for the reason of the war, but for your fellow friends. You're not going to run away from the battlefield because you love your friends and you don't want to leave them behind. And it's the same thing with harsh environments like the streets, or like prison, or like jail. So basically what I'm trying to say is human beings have the ability to adapt and find profound meaning even in the most harsh situations. So if that kid would have found himself raised in the suburbs in a nice environment, if his parents would have gave him some type of direction, meaning they would have found out what his skills, his talents, his passions are, and worked around that. If the kid liked cars, put him in some type of apprenticeship program so that he can work on cars and learn how engines work. He would have grew up founding self-respect. He would have grew up founding sense of meaning, sense of principle in that. You know, the idea of fixing some type of problem with a car, fixing a transmission, fixing an alternator, fixing whatever would have given him a sense of self. So I think that kids are attracted to the streets because once they get into it, just like human beings are able to adapt to any situation, once they're in it, they find meaning, they find self-respect, they find morality, sense of principle, sense of self. Because like I said, a human being can adapt to any harsh environment, any harsh atmosphere, and still maintain their sense of self. So even though they're in this destructive, genocidal lifestyle, they're still able to practice these principles and find this meaning. So I don't know how to stop it, because culture is simply the behavior, the trends, and the common accepted attitudes and actions of a particular group. Whatever a group does that's considered normal is culture. You know, if you're a part of a group that likes to eat oatmeal, that's naked, that doesn't go to school, that's your culture. That's what you guys do, because that's the prevalent attitude, that's the prevalent trend of your particular group. The streets itself is a culture. You know, it's a legitimate culture. And you know that something's a culture because when the members die, go to prison, or somehow go away, they're replenished with a fresh group. That's culture. You know, just like in civilian culture, when workers retire from their jobs, a new crop of workers pop up and replace them. So we just got to start giving these kids something else to find meaning in. Instead of putting them in a street environment and allowing them to find meaning in that and self-respect in that, give them something to do where they can find that same type of principled sense of self. You know, give them some type of skill or something that they can strive for, where they can extract the same principled sense of self from. Peace.